Yeah, we are buying literally over several billion impressions a day. And the question is, how many of those should be personalized? And I don't come up with an answer that's less than in the hundreds of millions. So while it's more efficient to make each ad, the number of ads, if we can prove the efficiency around recall and all the, or outcomes, which we will talk about, I think that it'll, and there's a debate. Will the costs go down or the costs go up? I don't know. We're going to see.
Hi, I'm Greg Stewart, CEO of MMA Global, the international nonprofit trade association for CMOs who are focused on architecting a new future of marketing.
I'm Rex Briggs, an author, market researcher, measurement inventor, and entrepreneur.
I'm Greg Stewart, CEO of MMA Global.
I'm Rex Briggs, an author, marketing researcher, and entrepreneur, and chief AI officer for Claritas, and this is Decoding AI for Marketing. So Greg, when you're thinking about MMA and your team, and even other experiences you have running organizations, you probably are thinking a lot about how you have to make decisions about where to invest in something and really where to place your bets. Is that true?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, the fundamental thesis of the MMA as a trade association, like all trade groups, is supposed to look in the future and guide the members in that direction. So for us, it's trying to help CMOs to see the future. And certainly the purpose of this podcast and others that we do and the other efforts that the MMA has is try to guide marketers into AI, which is sort of interesting, Rex. I didn't tell you that. Oh, actually, you were on the call yesterday with the board, right?
Yep.
Oh, boy. We got a long ways to go, Rex. There appeared to me to be very little plans and a lot of like, oh my God, it's coming fast. What are we going to do? So that was my take.
We've got a man with a plan here on this show today, and it is about where do you decide to place your bets. And Jonathan has placed a lot of really big bets on behalf of Omnicom, where he is CEO of Omnicom Digital within the Omnicom group. And he and I go way back to the very beginning of the internet. He was a couple of years ahead of me. He was also a floor ahead of me. When I was at Wired, he was running organic upstairs. And I first got to see him in the very earliest days of measurement. And he has been the smartest person I've seen in the industry world around measurement over the decades. I think I was sharing, he had the story about the one ring to rule them all as he thought about which measurement systems and where you should place those measurement systems to be the most strategic place. And now I think we have that same discussion with AI. So Jonathan, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah,
I look forward to the conversation.
Geez, Jonathan, though, he just said, that was kind of like when you walk up to a guy who says, a comedian says, tell me something funny. That was like, hey, Jonathan, say something smart, would you? Huh? Come on.
Well, we'll see. I hope to live up to that intro.
Exactly.
Well, so speaking of...
Don't introduce me like that if you could. Well, you probably wouldn't think of it. Wouldn't think of it.
I wouldn't think of it in that way, Greg. But for Jonathan also has a really interesting background because it's not just digital and AI and advertising and marketing. He is also a huge fan in the music world. He introduced me to one of those great playlists when he and I had a road trip together. He picked, I think, all the CDs back when the day there were CDs. Investor in a music club, I'm sure you're also thinking about how AI is changing that industry as well. And so your breadth of interest in seeing everything from the ad world to the culture of music and what's happening in your club in San Francisco and so on. We want to hear what you think about what's the most exciting opportunities for AI. And maybe we'll start there. What are you most excited about today?
Well, I have to comment on music, which is, I think the one thing AI probably won't do is create that collective swoon that you experience when you're seeing an amazing live event by real musicians, and kind of the feeling of a crowd. I think that's pretty hard to recreate, and that's something, chasing that magic is kind of why I do Hardly Strictly Bluegrass in the Greater American Music Hall in San Francisco. What AI is interesting. It is advancing so amazingly quickly at the moment, whether it's creating voice, whether it's creating images, soon to be creating video, creating coherence around insane amounts of data. I think we're all just standing back in awe of like what these systems appear to be capable of. Mm-hmm. And I say appear because we're kind of on the cusp of putting theory into practice. So we're in the age of experimentation, but we're about to like really embark on, okay, this is going to have a significant impact on our craft. But I'm sure we'll unpack that for the next hour.
And Jonathan, just to be clear, your role within Omnicom Digital, in case the listeners don't know, is to really lead the world's biggest marketers in trying to figure out that future yourselves, right? Isn't that it?
Yeah, I've been the CEO of Omnicom Digital for 23 years, so I have a couple decades under my belt. Before that, I did a number of companies that went public in the kind of tech and services space.
Yep.
So yeah, my charter is to kind of push us into all the nooks and crannies related to digital, and AI is the latest manifestation of digital. So yeah, high on the agenda. I mean, it's all AI, all day, all night.
All day, all night, exactly. Hey, Jonathan, there was a little bit of hesitation, though. You kind of put in the tone, at least you expressed the comment. I mean, listen, it's pretty exciting. We can even pick on, I don't know where you're
Sure.
going, but maybe, I mean, OpenAI, for example, has been pretty revolutionary. I mean, it seems like every 3 months they kind of wow us with something new. And yet, there is a part of those experiences that don't feel exactly right. Like, I love the audio thing recently, but I don't really want to talk to a machine like that in the way that they had that conversation. So, right. And Sora is amazing, incredible. We've never seen anything like that, but I'm not really sure it's ready for film production, to your point. Is that what you're kind of referencing? Like, we still got to get there? Or are you expressing some skepticism, by the way? I'm just curious, having been around these cycles a long time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you can't be in technology without saying what's real.
Yeah.
And so I could go through each one of those things and say, okay, what's the use case? How is this applied? How realistic is this? How fit for purpose is this? And I would say things like audio. Are you really going to have a chit-chat conversation where the computer's asking you, hey, I love your outfit. Do you really care that a robot loves your outfit? Or Sora, which is really interesting, but is more a science experiment than it is reality at the moment. I'm not discounting that it won't, text to video or video to video, whatever modality to whatever modality will have a huge impact on the business. But I'm not asking if, I'm asking when.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then how. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's safety, and there's all kinds of stuff to unpack around that. Like, we need to, privacy, safety, alignment, coherence, on and on and on about, we got to make real stuff for real people.
Yeah, well, let's unpack that, making real stuff for real people. One of the things that we've been doing with MMA Global has been the series of AI personalization studies where we are finding we can basically double conversion rate, in some cases even more, by using a much more sophisticated version of the machine learning that we've been using for a couple of decades for ad serving delivery, where you have lots of different versions and layers, and the AI can, like, maybe it's a male voiceover, female voiceover, different call to action, different scripts, different music backgrounds, and the ability for the AI to predict which combination is going to work in this particular DMA at this particular hour of the day. I mean, actually, where you're at in San Francisco, I was just looking at, we're doing some work with Major League Baseball, and one of the teams, the AI, they had happened to give different ads of the ballpark during the day games versus night games. And interestingly, the AI had automatically learned that it should show the stadium lights on when it got to dark at night. So it was using the hour of the clock to make a decision. And it was finding that people were more likely to convert to something that looked like the same darkness outside or whatever. So those things to me are only about 1% of digital ad delivery today, but it seems like that could really grow. First, what do you think is the barriers when you're trying to scale and grow, when you do have a good idea, to make it become, the majority of the idea? And you lived through the internet, so you saw this early on, where marketers were spending less than 1%, and now they're spending the majority of the budget. How does that happen? Do you think that's going to happen a lot faster with AI? If so, what are the big barriers that you have to overcome as an agency to get there?
I think there's a technical answer, and then there's a human psychology answer. And, Rex, you and I have been at this for literally decades. And the one thing I've learned over the decades is black boxes are not always just the solution, right? People change, and, people say that science advances one funeral at a time. That's because the incumbents kind of move on, and, new people take their place. And I think that's actually driving a lot of technological change, is actually humans and their ability to adapt and change and evolve. That's, one side. And it's only, this is my third decade in the business, and we have surpassed 50% of media spend, quite handily by now. But look, it took 25 of those years to get there.
Crazy,
right? It's not that the technology wasn't there, or that we couldn't improve the metrics, client server, all that stuff. It's that people just didn't want to do it, even though we could demonstrably prove that it had a better ROI or ROAS or whatever metric you want. The second side of this is technology, right? We touched on a couple of these technologies that are changing, and kind of what you're talking about, we'd call mass personalization at scale, right? The means of production are fundamentally changing, so that not only can you recognize the signal, okay, it's baseball stadium lights on at night actually have a better result than stadium lights off. That's a pretty simple A/B test. The reality is these new systems are capable of incredible multi-partite understanding of all the inputs and all the outputs, right? They're goal seeking by, if you set it up to be goal seeking, like set the result you want, and it will start to find all the components needed. And I think it's sort of an IQ test, which is if you can take the means of production's cost down low enough, and the media placement, which is very real, like your cost of goods sold, the personalization works. I've never seen a study that didn't say that. And so what we're trying to do is figure out, okay, how do we put all these pieces together, right? The hero image, the background, the copy, the logo, the call to action, right? The media placement, the music, right? Now let's do it in video and make it 1,000 times more complex, right? That is what, let's, by the way, do it in 110 countries with different feature sets, and say it's a car company for those cars all over the world. Like, pretty soon you have a pretty hairy matrix of inputs, right? But the good news is computers are completely capable of sorting all this stuff out. So, that's what I've been trying to do for the past 30 years.
So, Jonathan, what are some of the recommendations you make to some of your clients for focus areas? Like, what is Omnicom telling people? Like I said, we'd heard you guys were doing the best of anybody out there.
We're trying to talk to the clients on a one-by-one basis, right? Like, they're all different. They all have different needs. I think we're generally in calibration mode, and clients are asking kind of, who are your partners, and kind of what's the difference between them, and what do they do, and what are you doing? And the good news is we've had tools in beta since April, so 14 months ago. Like, we started actually rolling out, and mostly OpenAI type stuff. But machine learning is not new to us. I mean, we've been at it. We have a platform called Omni that has 30 plus petabytes of data in it. We've been using AI models, mostly reinforcement learning, for many, many years to do a lot of what Rex is talking about, like analytics, media. And most of the clients they understand that. They're on board with that. It's not a new conversation to them. If you're a client of Omnicom, chances are you're touching Omni somewhere. We're having a much more in-depth conversation, but we're now extending that conversation using transformer models, GPT, to really reach into their business and say, okay, kind of here's where we are, here's state of the art, let me show it to you, here's where we're going. And, let's judge, people have different aptitude, and they want to embrace this differently. Some clients are incredibly conservative, and they're like, hey, let the peer set try it out first. Other ones are leaning in and saying, look, I want it all. I want to be shoulder to shoulder with you at the console, in the meetings, helping make this happen. So
what's the ratio?
5,000 clients.
What's your ratio that you'd say if that leaning in side by side versus on the fence, or maybe holding back to be a fast follower or something?
I would say there's almost no client that doesn't want to have a conversation, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
in the early days of digital,
that's true. That's true. That is.
There were
different.
a bunch of clients that were like, "This is the CB radio of the '90s." Like,
wasn't there a guy at P&G who would carry around a laminated, a printed out version of a banner, and he would hold it out and he'd pull it up and say, "I don't believe this works." I haven't seen anybody like that with AI, so that's good.
Yeah. So everybody wants to have the conversation, and it's kind of an IQ test. Are you interested? Yes. How interested are you is where the subtlety creeps in. And then how much experimentation do you want? And so over time, you kind of get to the right answer. So 100% everybody's interested. How many are really, really leaning in? It's actually much less than 100%.
But Jonathan, how do you frame that for them? I mean, listen, the MMA's perspective is that there's kind of basically three options, right? There's efficiency, and what are we doing to do what we're doing now faster and better with maybe fewer people or fewer resources or less time. Performance, which is what Rex mentioned around the personalization study, although that study also has that there's an efficiency thing in doing generative audio ads we did there for Progressive. And then I think the third option, which I've not seen anybody get anywhere near, is how do we dramatically change the nature of our business? Like build this shit into the product to totally change how we approach consumers in every way. And I'm not even sure that the way I framed that was expansive enough to what the third one should be. Okay.
Yeah.
And so where do you think the attention, like what guidance do you kind of give broadly for people? And it could be helpful to the listeners here to understand like where they should be starting to think. Yeah.
I think there's certainly an efficiency component to this. And the big open-ended question is, okay, if the means of production are much more efficient, do you create the same number of ads? I would counterpose that with the point that we were just making about mass personalization at scale. My guess is the number of ads goes up by hundreds of millions, if not billions.
Could be. Yeah. We just did
Yeah.
Rex just did 700 for a Kroger's campaign. Crazy. By the way, we think it broke the machine, but it's hard to tell on that.
I mean, yeah, we are buying literally over several billion impressions a day. The question is, how many of those should be personalized?
Right.
And I don't come up with an answer that's less than in the hundreds of millions. So
Yeah.
while it's more efficient to make each ad, the number of ads, if we can prove the efficiency around recall and all the, or outcomes, which we will talk about, I think that it'll, and there's a debate. Will the costs go down or the costs go up? I don't know. We're going to see.
Well, value will go up. Then can you charge more for it? Right. That's always kind of been the
That's what you'd
agency.
expect.
I'm an agency guy. That's the challenge.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
agencies. we create more value, we get paid more.
Yeah, do we go from time and materials to kind of outputs and outcomes? Yeah. And this is why we bought Flywheel, which I'm glad to touch on later. But
yeah, good.
There's that. Actually, let me segue right into that. We did buy a company
talk about Flywheel because I'm not sure if I know why you guys.
So Flywheel is the largest retail media buyer on the planet. They are the largest customer of Amazon on the buy side. They have more data than anybody about transactions. And when you connect it to the rest of Omni, it's actually a pretty rich data set, which we'll unpack probably later. But as you get to your second point, which is performance, right? We believe at Omnicom that advertising exists for a reason. And it exists because it's supposed to create outcomes. And it could be, brand recalls is an outcome, or downloading a white paper, or downloading an app, or selling a product. We're here to sell cars. Mm-hmm. The reason why we bought Flywheel is because we think these guys are the best in the business on the buy side at understanding that equation. And when you add it to their data set to our pre-existing data set in Omni, I think it's a pretty interesting combination. And so we believe your second point, that performance is going to drive, is going to take the first point, which is, it'll be cheaper to do each individual piece of creative, but there will be exponentially more pieces of creative. And ultimately, if we could tie it to point number 2, which is performance, that's going to be where our clients will go. And that, in turn, leads to point 3, which is sort of, does that start to change the business models? Well, you're going to have a very different relationship with the consumer, right? You're going to educate them. You're going to bring them through a purchase funnel. You're going to sell them. You're going to try to get them to influence other people to buy the product, right? You're going to manage that relationship and hopefully get them as a return buyer. And that will all be done digitally, as it is now in many cases, but it's going to be even more seamless, even more personalized. And that's AI will just be fundamental to each of those 3 components.
Jonathan, I believe in your vision completely. What do you think are the immediate next steps of somebody who wants to get started on that journey to make progress against that roadmap. And if they want to run as fast as they can to achieve that vision, what do they need to get to? I mean, one of the meetings that Greg and I have coming up in Napa is the CEO or the CMO and CFO relationship. Like, if you're going to really connect to performance and you want to have budget that flows based upon returns, then you maybe need a different relationship with the CFO and the connection back to EBITDA and enterprise value, for example.
Huh. Oh gosh, there's so much to unpack inside there. There's got to be. I think there's many relationships that kind of get refigured here. The CIO plays a big role in here, and understanding data and flow, and kind of opening it up so that you can drive the best results. Hard to do in many companies without a CIO relationship included, as well as the CMO, of course, and CFO kind of greenlighting it. I mean, the first thing to do is buckle your seatbelt because this stuff's changing pretty quickly. Two, you got to go from a browser to a buyer. Like, you got to really understand. I would suggest you sort of become a believer, right? Go play with it firsthand a little bit and, see what it's good at, see what it's not good at. Understand that it's changing massively right now. I mean, you referenced OpenAI, introduces a new product every 3 months that completely obliterates what it had done 3 months ago. Right, they're not the only ones that are doing it. Anthropic is doing it. Google is doing it. You're seeing new entrants to the market. Facebook, and a lot. NVIDIA. There's probably 6 or 7 companies that are developing frontier models, which, by the way, cost about $1 billion each to develop to be a true frontier model. And you have about 6 companies that are playing in that space right now. That's before you get to the small language models. You have to become a believer that this actually is going to happen and understand some of the nuance of this. The good news is we are here at Omnicom to kind of help you, kind of hold your hand through it. Like, we can show you real stuff, we can show you real results, we can show you real creative, and we can tie it to real outcomes. And I think when people see that, they go, "Oh, I get it," and we're back to point 3, which is, maybe this does start to change the way we relate to customers. Maybe this does change our business model.
You're on mute, Greg. The AI is mass personalized.
No, the AI didn't mute me. It was just me. I had a lawnmower going in the background. The bane of all good podcasters, I guess. Hey, Jonathan. What's the? I guess, like, I'd love to get. Given your perch, it's got to be incredibly valuable to listeners here. Like, what is some of the most, and I know you probably don't want to talk about individual clients there, so but can you give examples of, like, the coolest AI projects you see going on? And would be interesting, like, what do you think is going on that really gets you excited now? You're looking to see the test. It could be somebody outside the company too, fine. But I'd also like to, I might even ask you some contrast, like, what are you seeing today versus what you saw like 4-6 months ago? So, what?
This is going to sound totally geeky. I mean, like,
look,
we're watching the Sora stuff and we're watching VO come out from Google, like the text to video stuff. Yeah, that's pretty wild. It's
pretty cool. It's
right?
pretty cool.
We're looking at Udio, where create music from scratch, and
Yep.
yeah, that stuff's pretty flashy and it's exciting, right? Diffusion models are getting better, right? They now generally put 5 fingers on each hand, which it seems like a major breakthrough to me, at least, as somebody who's been playing with these versus the 10-finger stuff that I was doing before. I mean, there's major advances. There's one thing that I'm really, really excited about right now, and that is context windows. And so I realize we're kind of in the bowels of things and this is a little geeky, but what we're seeing from some models is an expansion of the context window. And now, for those that don't know what a context window is, you basically can think of it, it's like a chat box, except you can throw anything into it. It's multimodal. So you can throw insane amounts of data into it. By the way, Google just announced a 2 million token context window. So that's, I believe, like 1,600 pages of text, or an infinitely large Excel spreadsheet that nobody would want to comb through, or like 22 hours of video, or 1,200 hours of audio. I mean, you could put that into a single context window and then start to ask it questions. And by the way, you can throw a video and a bunch of data. So you could create a synthetic audience and, 10 hours of car commercials and then have that audience review the commercials. Like, that's pretty cool. When you see it in action, that's really cool.
Hey, Jonathan, make sure that the listener understands what a context window is doing. You made it
Yeah.
sound a little bit like a chat bot, which I wasn't
No,
sure.
no,
you were
no.
about.
It's not a chatbot. It's essentially saying, okay, here's all the information you should refer to. And keep in mind, like, any frontier model right now has basically crawled the entire internet. So
That's what the New York Times is claiming, correct? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it has crawled
And
most,
Scarlett Johansson. I think those two
yeah,
both have said that, right?
It's crawled most publicly available information. So what it allows you to do is throw non-public information in there and combine it potentially with public, or you can constrain it and just say, here's a bunch of new stuff that you've never seen because it's not on the open internet. And then you can use it like a chatbot, right? You can start to ask it questions. So real world example, we talked about 30 petabytes of data between ourselves and our clients, right? You can start to throw huge blocks of data into this thing and start to ask it questions. That stuff's not publicly available.
And is it creating relevance? Is that what it's doing,
It's
Jonathan?
the
It's creating
key,
greater relevance? Yeah.
or the key is the original paper for the transformer was the attention is all you need, and it's the attention mechanism in the transformer model. And the challenge is that initially it could pay attention to something within like maybe 4,000 tokens, maybe 1,000 words. It could figure out what in that sentence mattered and what should I pay attention to, what are you asking about. What Jonathan's just said is that expansion to 2 million tokens and being multimodal means that now it can pick out what it should pay attention to, what's important, and it can find patterns and answers questions. And I think his combination of the foundational model, which basically has kind of the sum of the internet, good and bad, can be conditioned on your specific proprietary information to give you really specific answers. So I mean, I think that this is an important thing to geek out on, because it's how do you make this actionable for a specific company or a specific advertiser. Potentially, you can give it lots of different ad examples and video, copy, et cetera, and say, and data on here's the people who have bought it. Who should I market this new product to? Here's a picture of the new product. And you couldn't do that before. I mean, that's a meaningful breakthrough.
Yeah, let me give you a real world example. If you were a car company, you might be interested in, who are all the people that are coming off lease? Mm-hmm. Huge amount of our revenues attached to people that lease automobiles from us. That's not public information. You would take the data of all of the leaseholders, and including the people that are coming off lease, and throw that in the context window. And then you might take all of your marketing information and throw that in there as well. And say, okay, find me the people that are coming off lease and what are they interested in? Or what are their service records looking like? You could throw that in there. And, so who's had a good experience, who's had a bad experience, what kind of experience was it? How do we change the message so that it's like, hey, well, we're going to give you a discount. We're going to, you're probably a solid customer, so we're not going to give you a discount. You are a diehard, this is the fourth time you've owned our brand, of automobiles. There's different messages for each of these people. And that is all done within context windows. So very exciting for people like me.
Hey, Rex, you're going to have to ask another question. I've got a lawnmower going on outside.
Okay, no, usually we take turns, so I was waiting for Greg. I'll keep drilling into this with you. So as you build on getting marketers to recognize that this isn't now, really simple database, simple rules, simple dynamic creative that used to be rules based. That this is AI able to come up with really complicated patterns with coherence. What's the first baby step that you have a marketer do to begin to adopt? And if I was a marketer listening and thinking about, okay, this is what I need to do with my agency Omnicom, what should I be talking to my account people and asking them to do next to move in this pattern faster?
I think we talked a little bit about the belief thing, which is show me kind of stuff that others have done. That's a pretty common way to learn, which is, hey, what have you done for other folks? And the cool thing is we've got Omni, we can show it to you. Like, here it is. Like, we can actually start to create an audience specifically for you. We can tailor it to a media plan. We can tailor it to a creative brief. We can actually create creative, like ultimately tie it to outcomes. I mean, that is sort of the path of development. Now, within that, yeah, there's the context window, custom data sets, right? But there's a lot of subtlety in that. Like, you've got to trust that the system can do it first. You got to understand safety. You've got to understand propriety. You've got to, there's just a million subtopics that you go through to actually make this stuff real. That's the craft here. And it's not easy. But it starts with just, what can this thing do? And what can it do today? And then where are we going tomorrow? And that's hopefully something that we're articulating as this thing's evolving at Lightspeed. We're trying to articulate a path forward so that it's like, here, start here. We have partnerships with all of the players, which is very different from our peers, many of whom are just saying like it's one or two. No, we did the first deal with Microsoft. We did the first deal with Google. We did the first deal with Getty, Shutterstock, Adobe. We've been playing with this stuff for a long time now. And
on those deals,
all of them.
Let's unpack the deals for a minute, because I know one of the things that some marketers are concerned about is the way in which copyright information. Greg made the joke about it's crawled these foundation models have crawled the entire internet, including the paywall stuff. So one of the things that you have to protect or indemnify or deal with is creative generation or content. Is that an area that with some of your deals, like with Getty and so forth, is that to help make that be easier? Or tell me a little bit about how do you make a marketer feel safe if they're going into the generative AI part of this for their creative?
Yes. I mean, this is copyright violating can get quite challenging for both the agency and the brand if stuff gets through. So the first line of defense is you look at the models themselves and get indemnity from them. By the way, each of the models behaves differently. So Getty is trained on a very constrained set of just their images, and you literally have to take, if you want to create a Volkswagen ad, you would have to show it images of Volkswagen. Like, you have to retrain the model to understand what a Volkswagen is. Versus, say, Google's Imagine, it very much, if you type in Volkswagen Golf GTI, it will know what it looks like, and it will create actually photorealistic Golf GTIs. Now, each one of them is different. We, by the way, have indemnity from most, if not all of them. But look, if somebody takes Spider-Man and puts it behind the wheel of a Golf GTI, that's a pretty clear copyright violation. Some of the models will do it, some of them won't. There's a human in the loop trying to stop that kind of behavior, and we have tons of training and so on and so forth, and filters to try to stop that kind of stuff. But yeah, copyright's very, very real. I mean, just like it is in TV or any other media form, right? You can do it with Photoshop.
But Jonathan, what were the deals? You guys have been public about doing deals with OpenAI, I assume, Anthropics and that. I don't know. What are those deals? Give me the basic bones of those deals.
What we try to get access to is the premier models before they're released to the public. And so there's quite a bit of experimentation that goes on so that we can kind of say what I just said, which is if I could go chapter and verse about like where each of those companies are on copyright, like what they will do, what they won't do. The reason why I know that, because we've been experimenting with these things. Many of these are not public models yet. Like, they're in preview. And so we get access to them. Then we look for pricing. Okay, what happens if we start to use this stuff at scale? And by the way, pricing is changing also at Lightspeed, because there's two forces happening right now. One is Moore's law is, making it cheaper, right? NVIDIA comes out with a new chip a little bit faster than every year. That's 3 to 4 times faster than the one, the H100 that it replaced. On the other hand, the demand for compute is going up, and so pricing is all over the place. And so we're looking for pricing, then we're looking for support. What's it going to take to actually run this stuff? And so it's something that we very much look to our partners for. And then roadmap. Where are they going? Like, what, we have a point of view about this, and because we're sort of neutral and in the middle, the nice thing is invite us to have a seat at the table so we can kind of understand what each of them are trying to do, and the strategies of all these different models and these different companies are radically different right now. And that's part of the service that we offer, is we see everything and we have a point of view about it because we see everything. We've been doing it longer than anybody.
And just what's the public deals? Give a list of people that you've been public about, just so the listener knows.
Oh gosh, it always blends because I know what we're about to do.
Yeah, you got to remember what you haven't put in the press release yet.
So Microsoft and OpenAI, Google, Adobe, Getty, Shutterstock are the big ones that mostly got announced around Cannes. So June of last year. There are many open source ones that we're evaluating, like think of like Llama 2, Llama 3 kind of stuff, Falcon, Claude. But the 5 that I mentioned are I would say that those are generally like the frontier models.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those guys, and then there's a couple more that we haven't been as public about.
What do you think is the that's probably a hard one. What's the thing you think you'll be announcing a year from now in broad strokes?
Hopefully we're announcing video.
Okay.
And less than a year.
Yeah. And when you say video,
if you bring all these ideas will apply to video. Yeah, production of video, but real world stuff. I mean, I think that somebody's going to do a Super Bowl commercial that was created by AI next year. Yeah. I'm not saying that we are doing that. I'm just saying that the technology hopefully will be in a place where it's real, because many of the things that are AI video are not really fully AI video yet, right? People have kind of been on the hype train and been doing it, but I think that's going to be real. Yeah. And then I think what's going to happen with this context window stuff that we referred to before, like that will go nonlinear, right? It's, was 1 million, it's now 2 million. It could go dramatically forward, and that will unleash things that you've kind of never even, that Rex and I have been talking about for 30 years.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be exciting. So so to flip side, what are some of the things that you think are kind of dead ends, that people really should be changing their course, or maybe are, overhyped and aren't likely to live up to the hype?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I think it's really soon to tell. I think a lot of people are using the state-of-the-art models, the frontier models, for everything. Like, GPT-4o, versus SMLs or small language models, right? Like, if you're doing pretty basic stuff, you don't need a multi-billion parameter model to do it. They're expensive, they're complex. It's killing an ant with a sledgehammer. And so I think right now that's the one that everybody does, and so they just do that. Well, we're about to see kind of another really interesting thing that I think you're just seeing glimmers of, which is small language models will make it into the phone.
Yeah, so I think you're really right on this one. I just was seeing a demo where the workflow was an AI agent was deciding, do I need the foundational 4, or can I get by with Llama free hosted locally?
Yeah.
And I think and then your point about getting on the phone, I think that's really
edge computing is going to go crazy. I mean, you're about to see that's going to unleash a whole next thing about intelligent agents, right? Because in some ways your phone knows you better than yourself, right? Because it's unbiased, right? It knows kind of what seat you want on the airplane, or how you like to order food, or whatever, and agents will start to do that for you. But I think right now a lot of people are using these frontier models to do everything, and that's just not going to be true. And then when you scale it up, and remember what we were talking about, mass personalization scale. Okay, if you're doing 1 billion ads and you're using a frontier model for everything, that's going to be really expensive. Like it just won't. It's not that it won't scale. It probably will. It's just you don't need to do that. And and let's reintroduce the CFO to the conversation. The CFO is going to go, "Oh my God, look at my my hyperscaler compute bill. That's crazy." And so we're very cost conscious as well as we proceed forward.
Hey, Jonathan, let me ask you the hard question, and maybe it's not for Omnicom, given the agency are, maybe it's other agencies, but I think there's some marketers who aren't wondering how dramatically their relationship changes to their agency or the agency business changes itself. So, I mean, listen, if all this becomes easy and some marketers mean they can start, a lot of what agencies have played a role in is providing massive amounts of resources on hopefully a layer of smarts.
Yeah.
Feels like that's going to change pretty dramatically here. Yeah.
Is that we're back to the efficiency question? There'll be fewer people?
No, I mean that would be part of where that goes, but does it really dramatically change the whole dynamics of what the agency really means to its clients? Again, I mean, listen, we've all been through that now the last 20, 30 years. In fact, you led the last charge on changing the agency models, quite truthfully, right? So,
Well, and there's even an argument that it could go the opposite way, which is
Yeah.
agencies become more important because things are moving so fast and it's hard to keep up, and you really need someone with a broader view. So flip a coin, which side does it land on?
The world's not getting less complex, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot more channels. There's now a lot more technology. There's a lot more opportunity, and there's, quite frankly, a lot more competition. And so almost every 5 to 10 years, we get a wave of that exact question. So what's the agency of the future, and what's the utility, and what is that? And so far, I think we've been reasonably, not perfect, but reasonably successful stewards of these brands developing and kind of evolving with the times and the changing technologies. And I don't see that declining. Have the relationships changed? Absolutely. There used to be the Mad Men era where it was like, okay, we got all of our business done, and then we went out for a 2-martini lunch. I can't think of the last time I left my desk for lunch. Right? Like we're working on behalf of clients trying to make sense of all of this stuff. So the relationships certainly have changed, but the complexity will just drive it further.
So I didn't come here with this question. But let me put it in context. I'm an ex-agency guy. I did that for the first dozen years of my career. I love the agency business. Why I moved to New York City. But we also just talked about how marketers aren't keeping up in any way and how slow they are. In fact, Rex knows. He created multi-touch attribution because he did it as a part of the thing I was working on for the IAB to figure out how to measure internet and market mix revolutionary. And I happen to know, because MMA measures this, today marketers, only 52% of marketers have multi-touch attribution. I would not call that acceleration into the future at all. In fact, I would call that effing insane, that's the only where we are now on MTA. I mean, it's nuts. So I don't know. And so, I don't know. So I think the question I'm trying to ask, and I'm not here I really didn't come here to put you on the spot, but is the agency at fault? Is the market at fault? Like, why isn't marketing have an ability to keep up with the future as fast as the consumers and the world changes around us? Because I don't think it does at all.
Well, I started to touch on this question that I started with. It's people, right? And whether those people are at the agency or at the client or at both. Right,
Okay,
48% of the people are not embracing the state-of-the-art technology, and here we are 20 years in after Rex invented it.
Right,
MTA.
and you're a lean-in future guy, Jonathan. I've known you for a lot of years. I know your history. Me too.
Yeah.
I would think Rex, absolutely. So why is everybody else so slow? And by the way, just so you know, the question I'm really asking here, to put a point on this. This is MMA. I think MMA needs to be in the change management business, and I don't know how in hell to get the agencies and the marketers to change more dramatically than they do. And I think it's to our detriment that we don't change.
Tell Greg how to do his job, Jonathan. Here's your chance.
That's kind of, I mean, I'm going to reposition a little bit. Yeah, you can tell me how to do my job. That's fine too. I don't mind that. But I think also too, like, if we think that we need to keep up with the future and we have all this opportunity in front of us, why is it so hard for us to get there? And I'm talking us collectively. So I'm putting us all on the same side of the problem right now, which, by the way, is the thesis of the MMA. MMA works not just for CMOs, but we have the tech
Yeah, yeah,
companies at
yeah.
the table. We're all sitting at the table for the same reason. It's a big question.
Yeah, I think
Jonathan.
it's a transformation question, and transformation is hard. People tend to not like change,
They don't.
myself
Right.
included, even though,
Agreed.
uh,
Yeah.
and they want proof with very little skin in the game, and and regardless of all the examples of people that have taken the higher ground using technology as the springboard, many brands play it extremely safe. And they're
Yeah,
very
they
conservative.
do.
And I get it. They've built an incredible amount of brand equity, and it's really, really hard to change. It's really hard to change Omnicom. It's really hard to change clients. But there's an inverse side of what you just said, which is 52% up from zero of people are using MTA. Now, it seems like an IQ test. Like, yeah, everybody should be doing it. Well, I mean, when I started Omnicom, we had basically zero revenue in Omnicom Digital. And now it's a vast majority of the revenue at Omnicom.
Right.
But change is hard.
Yeah.
And it takes a steady, firm hand on the tiller. That's the big thing.
And you won at Organic, and in fact beat Y&R and Wonderman at the time, I think, because of your ability to move more quickly and the opportunity to do that. I mean, it kind of suggests in some regards that some of us go start an AI agency right now outside of the whole ecosystem, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone's going to transform their agency into an AI one, Jonathan's the guy. He's that hand on the tiller. I do think that there's also an interesting thing with the difference between internet and mobile and socials. These different changes that we've seen in marketing, and we've all had a front row seat to them. And AI. If the MMA global research that I'm working on with some of the different brands is right, and it's a doubling of conversion rates, and that's sustainable, then that's a lot bigger than the 20% increase that we might have seen from digital advertising earlier. And I think the bigger that gap is, the more that it punishes those that don't adopt it, because they'll lose market share faster. And so I am waiting for the marketer, the first couple of marketers that get to really big scale
Rex.
with your mass personalization to basically just really punish the people that don't. And then that I think could be more of a motivator.
To crucify its competition. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, by the way, Rex, we've talked about this, right? This is an opportunity that we see that you and I've not seen in 30 plus years. Nothing this big, this scaled, no CapEx, just do the world a little bit differently. Let's go. Big opportunity.
I think, Jonathan, your mass personalization vision is finally going to happen at scale.
Well, I think that at Omnicom, we're trying to do a bet that is certainly related to what we're talking about, but it's an even bigger one, which is, the language around conversion. Yeah, can we convert clicks? Can we get attribution correct? All these components. Look, what we're trying to do is solve a very significant problem for every business, and I would describe it as such, which is sales and marketing. I've always thought of them as like on adjacent floors, not connected by a staircase. Right? Everybody says sales and marketing in the same sentence. They blend it together, but how many people really do it? Like hold the marketing accountable for the actual transactions. And that is the basis on which we did the Flywheel acquisition earlier this year. And AI just supports that thesis, which is can we pull all this stuff together and say, hey, we're doing marketing that works. Not only does it work, we're going to prove it to you.
I love that.
And then will you look, and then back, Greg, to your earlier points, will you look at us a little bit differently if we're the people that are moving the cars off the lot or the computers off the shelves, or more people into your financial services, your mortgages? Like if we're the people that actually are doing that, can we have a different kind of discussion? Will you trust us a little bit more as your partner if we're proving it step by step by step?
Yeah.
That is what we're trying to do at Omnicom.
Yeah. I think it's the financial.
That is a
incentive
perfect. Yeah, the financial incentive alignment and the whole vision that this is the connection between the two of the business is a perfect place for us to end this episode.
Given we've solved
so
the
that
problem,
is
that what you're saying, Rex? We
now
solved
that we
there's the
solved
solution.
it,
Let's
do
move
what
on.
Jonathan said. Do what Jonathan said. That's all
Jonathan
you
said.
need to do. But I think this is the exciting part of the transformation. I'm so glad that you came on the show, Jonathan. It's great seeing you again.
Thanks
That's
so
it
much
for
for
this
having me.
episode of Decoding AI for Marketing. I'm Rex Briggs.
And I'm Greg Stewart.
Be sure to catch all our episodes, plus subscribe, follow, rate, and review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. You can get transcripts and more information on our website, decodingaiformarketing.com, and learn more about MMA and membership options. Go to MMAglobal.com. Thanks for listening.